Sarnia, I'm Katie Horvath. This is called Into the City. I'm here today with Eric Dalziel. Eric's looking for a seat in the upcoming municipal election for a Sarnia City Councillor. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
Not a problem. So we're here at Jackson Pool location. We're going to talk a little bit more about why we're at Jackson Pool, but for now, Eric, I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for council.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I'm a Sarnia resident. I have been for all my life. A taxpayer as well. I was educated and schooled in Sarnia. I went to Lampton College. And I also got a diploma from the Canadian Institute of Management in business. Also, over the years, gained a Bachelor of Arts degree in Human Resource Management Administration. I worked most of my life at Nova Chemicals. And I was a maintenance superintendent for a bunch of years, at which time I ran a shutdown for $27.5 million, so I'm used to dealing with money and reporting on the spending of that money. And for a bunch of years, probably around 15, I had budgets, money budgeted at about $7 million to $11 million a year.
Okay.
So lots of contracting experience and just ready to, a lot of qualifications to manage as a city councilor in Sarnia.
Great. So obviously you've got a lot of experience and both in work and life. Yeah. So why do you think that you would make a good representative for the people of Sarnia if you do get elected?
Well, I got involved. I tell you how I got involved in running for council.
Absolutely, yes.
Last September there was a rally for Mayor Bradley in support of what was going on in City Hall at the time. And I'm not going to go through all the details of that because most people know about it. But at that time, it was kind of a quiet rally of 200 or 300 people, and one of the city councilors came out and was part of the crowd and got people riled up from what I could see. So I backed off and left quickly. And then I decided at that time to get involved and find out for myself what was going on in City Hall. From that time on, I started to attend council meetings every month, once a month, whenever it was scheduled. There was some additional meetings as well that I tried to attend as well. So that's how I got involved. Once I did get there, because it was September, October, the budget was happening at that time. And I found out more that Jackson Pool was closed down. It has been for the last 3 or 4 years. And that upset me to the point where I needed to get involved more so than just watching. Even though when my kids used to take me council pool all the time. But at one time Jackson Pool was going. There was lots of people around it all the time all summer. My biggest concern was a group of kids between 5 and 15 years old with no place to go to swim, within bicycle range or within walking range for them to their houses.
Right.
So those are my 2 reasons for getting involved. I hadn't at that time made my mind up I was going to run for city councilor as yet, but I was going to find out more about what went on in City Hall, which I did.
Okay. So for this part, we'll just talk a little bit more about just kind of the reflections on the current council. I know you touched on it a little bit, but overall, what do you think that the council did well? What do you think that the council maybe could have handled a little bit differently?
Well, I was really disappointed in the way that Mayor Bradley was handled. As it turned out, the isolation, the walls, Martin Evans had to go through Diane Brown in order to talk to the mayor. All those things kind of upset. That's not a way to run a business. That's not a way for people to communicate. I did see during my number of council meetings, I did see a rift, disconnect between mayor, the CAO as the town now, not the town manager, and the council itself. As well, at the same time, I did see a real communications gap between staff and management of the city and the citizens of the city. So there's a gap between, say, mayor, city council, and staff management, and then the citizens slash relative to their communications back to the citizens,
Right.
which they all communication.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one or two you and I agree on. So everything comes to us later. But there are situations that happened where they did not communicate with us, and there have been many over the last year and a half that I can see in the issues.
Okay.
So,
Okay, fair enough. So if you are elected, I know that kind of repairing that relationship is something that you feel is important. So
right.
how would you kind of approach that moving forward from the conflicts that have happened into the new term?
I guess I would, from my viewpoint, I don't have all the information in the city council or how the city management works. But I know what worked when I was in business. They had an HR manager, and when there's issues between departments, they came with processes and the tasks to make sure that the departments got together and started to work together. You certainly can't do that with walls, with cameras. So I tend to believe the first thing you need to do is meet with the council and the mayor and the CAO and some of the city management and say, we're representing the city here of all its citizens, and you can see the vote. They've re-supported, or they've got a new mayor in here, but whichever, you've got to get together and sort that out, have a process to sort out the relationships so that it becomes so they can talk to one another.
So kind of revisit as a collective.
Exactly.
Okay.
Have to do that. It's not the first thing I'd be doing, though. You need to do that.
Yeah.
But the first thing is, if I'm elected to this council, there's a budget within October and November. We got to deal with that budget quickly.
Yes.
Understand what it's all about, and not just pass it through because we don't have the time to deal with it. It can't be passed through. By example, I have a great belief that this Jackson Pool, sponsored by John and Edith Jackson, needs a revamp. It needs to be put in a phased program that allows it to be back online by next summer. I learned that the report for the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Master Plan is not due till the first quarter of next year. It's too late to assign money to a fix like the pool. I'm not saying that the pool needs to be done. Well, what I'm trying to say is no. It's not that it may not be possible to do it because of money. I don't know that. But that's up to the budgeting process and the council management of the city plus the mayor to make that recommendation. Fix it up, phase it, or move it off into the master plan. Right now, I'm very strong. And I think part of the communication back to where the city management and staff don't have a good relationship with the citizen of the world was in the pool. There was a group of people came forward with 2,000 person petition. And it was like they just threw it back in their face. And there was also, I think, a 25-person a meeting held in the city where 25 citizens came and expressed their concerns about the pool, but it was just squashed. It wasn't dealt with properly as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I got involved in the pool. It's a shame here that we've had maybe 200 or 300 kids year after year that aren't being able to use this pool, unless I don't understand all the information. From a citizen's point of view, we just see the top of the iceberg for information.
Okay, that's fair enough. So there is one issue that I've found has been a divisive issue as well. In addition to the pool, was the switch to e-voting and the removal of paper ballots. There's some who say this is a great move. We need to move forward with our technology. This is a way to do it. There's others who feel it wasn't communicated properly. They didn't feel that they had a say in any way about taking that option away from the voters this year. What are your thoughts on that move?
I totally agree with you, Katie. If we're going to bring in automation, and we will, I can go from when we used a rotary phone to having reach down and get my cell phone and say I need it. You can't stay in the past. You can't stay in the past. But you do have to bring something on for people who don't totally understand it. So you bring it back on, I don't know, 60%, bring on electronics, but you also have your 40% ballot. If you gain some respect for the balloting system at that time, for the electronic balloting system, you can move to 80% the next time, but you're building some trust in the system. Right now, by moving directly out of it into internet and telephone voting, has a lot of distrust in people in the citizens of Sarnia. So I totally agree with you. Are we going to get there? Sure, we will. But it needs to be done over time and not all at one time.
You felt it kind of should have been phased in rather than just...
Phased in, exactly right.
Okay, I understand.
I also have an example of city, as far as I can see, ignoring city ignoring, or the management staff of the city ignoring the citizens. And that's the procedure bylaw that was put in place back the early part of the year, which put in processes that got the mayor further away from staff and management of the city, and even further away from the council, which put, again, that's the major disconnect. There were, inside that procedural
Inside the bylaw itself?
Inside the bylaw, itself, was a code of ethics.
Yeah.
And that code of ethics were never really explained to people well enough so they would understand. At the same time, code of ethics was getting mixed up with they're going to change the 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock council time to 5 o'clock, or they're going to do attendance. They had mixed very serious issues mixed up with really common things that a council could do for themselves.
Right.
And there was only one article, like I think it was your July article, first Monday explained that you looked for all this information. We're supposed to be going out to citizens and found very little. I did the same thing around the code of ethics. What information went to citizens? Nothing. I sent in an email to the clerk, and I went through and I said, I agree with these different, there was 8 items I said to it. The small ones that were easy to answer, go ahead and do it. The more difficult ones that needs a bigger presence, or it needs more people to discuss this, especially the city of Sarnia. And basically I got a Dear John letter. It was over with. More recently, last week in the Journal, there was a lady talking about, I'm sorry, I can't recall her name, was talking about a gas plaza out on Molden and Berger. And she had sent several letters to the city, the clerk, and then the planning supervisor, and somebody else. And there's one fellow that kind of satisfied her and gave her an answer that was okay, but that answer became null and void. The city council just voted this new plaza in at the last meeting. Another situation where a citizen had a concern, never got a proper answer, and city council followed through an easy answer and said, let's go do it. So there's another one there, at least 3 great situations, and there's more out there where the management and staff aren't communicating out to the citizens. And you shouldn't have to go through city council.
Right. There's some work there for sure.
Yep. So that one was big time to me.
Yeah, and that's actually a good segue into part 3, because I know before we started recording, we chatted about it a little bit. You started to tell me about your ideas about public input and getting communication, just an easier way to have that communication between the people and their government. So on that note of public input, what do you have? What are you doing in your campaign right now to kind of encourage the public input piece?
Okay. So as I explained to you,
yes.
What I'm doing is, and I just got my signs on Wednesday. I was out here Wednesday morning with the signs up. I'm going out to different parts of the city to spend 2 to 3 hours there. My intent is to go to Canatera in the morning. I'll go to Mike Weir Park. I haven't picked all the spots out yet, but some place where there's a traffic flow. And I've got a bit of a questionnaire, a paper questionnaire that asks people's what their issues and pet peeves are, and what their solution for those pet peeves would be. At the same time, also asking for ideas of revenues, revenue ideas that we bring into the city that will protect the tax base. So anything would be all new revenues, so we don't have to go back and continue to tax people for new services and new buildings or whatever. The taxes stay at an inflation rate and not go any higher, and yet we're able to go back out as a city and attract people that want to develop.
Right. And so you're also not just saying, tell me everything that's wrong, you're also giving that empowerment piece of also how can we make it right.
Right. And what I offer when these people come and sit, I tell them what my qualifications are and experience. But I also tell them my priorities of things that I would try to accomplish in my first 2 or 3 months in City Hall with my other counselors.
Right. Okay, that's great. So we'll talk a little bit more about just kind of about your thoughts, what we could expect if you are elected, a little bit more about your platform. So if you had to choose, just point form 3 of the most important issues that you think that people are facing, what would those 3 issues be?
Okay. The one issue is more timing, not necessarily the most important one, but we have to get a city budget out through October and November that the current mayor or the elected mayor and the elected city council can agree with. And I'm sure that the city staff and management doing budget preparation right now. We don't want to just gloss over it because the budget for the 2019 is quite important.
Yes.
So that's probably my first item off. It's not necessarily my most important one, but it's my first one.
Okay.
Second would be Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I'm still, the Parks and Recreation dollars are going to be spent next year. I would want to know very clearly why this Jackson Pool isn't on it, and to understand there's lots of other Parks and Recreation and cultural issues going on, but I'd like to get a phased program in for the pool. The third item is infrastructure priorities. You know, we've got infrastructure that's falling apart, but so does every other city.
Yes.
And the pipes and sewers. We've also had a report back earlier in the year from a young lady who presented on lead leaching from the pipe that we have in several houses, and also several pipes of the city. You got to deal with that. We also have road repair going on. You hear people talking about the roads need to be whatever. So you do a road, sometimes you got to go under and go on pipe and that to bring it back. So you don't have to go under next year. Next to that is a shoreline waterway project. So we've got to consider a lot of infrastructure, not just in my pool. But the other item that we have to deal with early on. So I think when the budget's out of the way, first couple, 3 months, we can't deal with infrastructure along the road and getting guidance back to staff and what we want done. Next one is repairing the relationships between, as I've said before, mayor, council, and management and staff of the people that use our money to manage the city. Right. The other issue is, and it's big to me, is the communication back from staff and management of the city back to the citizens. To me, the communication back is probably just a little bit less than important the amount of money spent on a project. You got to be able to tell people why you made the decision, tell them what you're going to do it, and then tell them what you did. And if you do that, you're probably going to have people will still complain. Could be some things that didn't do well.
Yeah,
sure.
That's inevitable.
But if you've satisfied 80 or 90% of the people, you probably got it made. You can move on to the next best thing.
Okay, fair enough. So
I got a couple of issues.
Yeah, sure.
Other things that I think are quite important: skits, heritage assessment of skits needs to be done, even though maybe it's a Board of Education responsibility. I think it's worthwhile to pay for that to get it done, so that we can start maybe moving the kids out of skits. Not our issue. It belongs to the Board of Education, Our issue maybe is to ask St. Clair why they're getting out of their school quick enough. But anyways, it gets moved out and then let some developers come in and start doing some of this new revenue that we're looking for. Again, keeping taxes at a base rate. So that needs to be done. Again, these aren't necessarily my priority order. Here's things that are important.
Okay.
I really think, too, that a detox center is quite important. We need a place for people to go, feel safely they can go there, they're not guarded, they can get quality help for their condition. We also need a safe needle place, a safe needle haven people to go to. And there's been some moves already. Don't think this is all new with me. I do know the people that are overhauling the general hospital have an idea around putting some beds in there as well. So it seems to me that's an ideal place because it's there's not a lot of houses around it. People with houses don't want hospitals in their area. I've heard it before, NIMBY.
Yeah.
Not in my neighborhood,
not in my backyard.
not in my backyard, exactly. And we want to stay away from that. And that general hospital area is just set out perfectly for it. Central City, so very. One came up in the last couple meetings at the City Council, and one was a contract for our garbage, rubbish, and recycle. And there was a single contractor got the bid for several $1 million. And I'm thinking, we got 4 years now before that contract's up. We as a city need to go out, instead of the contractor telling us what we're going to give him, we're going to make our minds up with the contractor. We come in to look at what our needs are. We're going to be telling him what he's going to do for us, not not the limits that are put on us anymore. It seems like we've got all this recycle, but we're getting limited all the time in what we can actually give them and how we're going to give it to them. Our money, let's take a 4-year look at it ahead of time. Important.
Okay.
The other thing, we don't have to do it now, but it's what the citizens are looking for. And it's a critique of the Centennial Park. When I was at Nova Chemicals in business, most any project we had over $50,000, and at least at the end of the year, most teams were in, you did a critique of yourself. You looked at what you did, how you did it, what you do differently the next time. As far as I'm concerned right now, city management is just waiting for that project to go away. They need to go back, critique what went on, look at their contractors, look at the money that was spent, look at however it was laid out, and identify what they will do next time differently, so that they've learned from their mistakes. That's what we all should be doing.
Would you support an independent audit of that, or you think it should be from the city?
No, I think it should be from the city.
Okay.
It may need some guidance on how you frame that, but no, because it becomes the ownership becomes to the person that brought the program in. The ownership becomes, well, we can blame Goulding for putting that park in. That was their fault. That people worked on. If we do it to ourselves, we become the responsible, accountable people.
Right.
You can just, as far as I'm concerned, nobody's really piped up and said, I'm responsible, I'm accountable for that part. There's been fingers pointed, but nobody's come forward. So you need to do it yourself to find out what you did wrong as a group, as a person, as a business.
Okay, fair enough. So is there any other specifics that you wanted to mention? I've got a couple other questions.
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to know record numbers of councillors running in this election. 28 for the city seat. You can only pick 4. I've been saying this a lot. I don't know yet who I'm going to vote for. I'm still trying to meet the candidates. So what would I expect from you personally if you were elected? Second part of that question is, why should I vote for you? What's been your elevator pitch for why I should vote?
Well, I come from a background of it's data plus information, so it's a tough one. First of all, we'd have to be sure that the mayor and county or city councilors are all on board with their priorities. We need to bring those 8 sets of priorities together. What's important to you as a councilor? What's important to me? And this is typical of most projects I go into. So if you're team building this group, You throw all your ideas together. You somehow put a quantity with each one. Which one would be most important? Highest dollar value one, or safety, health, environment to the city. For me, safety, health, and environment would probably be number one or number two that we got to deal with versus somebody new. I'm not sure.
I get
a
what
low end stuff. Yeah. So you prioritize.
Yeah.
So with that, and then you decide you're going to do a decision analysis of what that looks like, the problems. You also inform people what you're doing, your priority list, and without pushing it under the table, and say when you go at it. And then you, as a group, 8, 9, 10 people, you agree on an action plan, and communication is a big part of that. And then go ahead and fire away with the action plan through your management staff at the city management.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the term is only 4 years, but what is your vision outside of that 4 years? Sarnia's got so much potential.
Yep.
What do you see? What would you like to see over the next 20 years for the city? Long-term vision.
Me, I would like to see the buildings that are now vacant. And you can go out, the sports check. There's a big building across from Zayre's, across from Supercenter, what they used to call it. It's empty. Yeah. We've got to fill those buildings up somehow.
Yeah.
So we need to take some of our city-owned land. We have to turn that over to developers, make them buy it. So we have taxable residents and businesses that are paying tax to the city. I would also like to see the taxes go up at an inflation rate, not at the 4 or 5% that it seems to be going at. It seems to me, and it was only part of one budget, it seemed to me that it's a typical game. They bring a 5% budget, and the councillors say, no, not good enough. And they come back with a 3.5% budget and say, yep, good for us, let's move it on. That's not the way budget should be run. So that's quite a change, I think. It will be a change. We may have to accept what they do now because we have to get it moving, but I think it needs to change. The other thing I think is really important in my 6 or 7, 8 months going to city council, it would have served an answer if it had been done a few years ago. You need a human resource manager that's hired by the city to do a job. If he was not on contract. In contract, I guess is my opinion that somebody's just searching to keep their job rather than very assured that they have a job. And with that, I know down where I worked, if there's an issue between departments, we had our harassment policies, bullying policies, a variety of policies that we knew very well how to use them. And if there was an HR guy around, he could drop it in a room, make sure he took care of business. So I think a big issue right now is having a contract HR person. And I think that person needs status. So you have to be very careful who you choose. So again, that's a difference.
Okay, fair enough. So I've pretty much hit on the key points that I wanted to ask you, but I want to just leave this part totally open to give you the opportunity for your final message to anybody that's watching, whether it's how to get a hold of you, what's just your final word to the viewers. Okay.
Well, right now I have my email address out there and my cell phone number. That's what I like people to use. I do have, my wife is watching Facebook for me. It's just, I have to move on to Facebook, I suppose, but right now there's people talking there that in their, I guess, view, it's important to them, but it's not necessarily factual to me right now. I'm looking for, that's the type of person I am. I'm looking for facts, and personal facts are part of it as well. So the other thing is, I forgot to mention earlier in my little bio that I talked about that I did some things around Sarnia. I was a soccer coach for a while. I was a travel team hockey coach. went to Blood Services for many, many years. And I worked for Home Handyman through Lambton Seniors. And for a couple of years I was I worked with a fellow with dementia. I gave his wife, a guardian, a caregiver, some time off. So those things were positive in my life as well. Not that I was helping others, just they made my life richer for having done it.
Yeah. That's usually the case. When you serve others, it makes us feel
It does, it really does. Yeah. The other thing that Katie mentioned earlier, and I thought this is a great idea, and you did ask me, what do I do after 4 years? Well, in 71, I was hoping to have my feet down the ground after another 4 years. It's a lot of work. But Katie mentioned young people having issues, and maybe I don't understand all those issues. And I said I would certainly offer through my, again, it's one of the ideas I have in my how to generate money areas. One is use the young high school kids, use their 40-hour service to the community and bring them into city council and give them some learning there and what goes on. And then Katie also mentioned here yourself, mentioned about mentoring people that are just getting out of college. And I said that would be a great idea. I would certainly love to mentor somebody looking for a political career. That would be great. And at least when I leave, it's been passed on, and at least they have enough information to like it or dislike it, which is okay.
Right. But kind of bridging that.
Bridging the old and the young. Yep.
Exactly. Great. Great answer.
What I do believe, though, is there's some people in jobs that just don't know what the next level is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
And I really believe inside the communications of Sarnia management and staff, back to the citizens of Sarnia, there's some real issues there. And it's done.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming and chatting with me, letting me record this so that the viewers at home can see you if they don't run into you in the community. So thank you guys very much for watching. Again, this has been Eric. Polls open October 11th through to October 22nd. If you like what he has to say, certainly vote for him online. I'm Katie Horvath. This is Eric Dalziel.
Yeah. And look for me at different sites around Sarnia.
All right.
I'll be looking for you to come up and talk to me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.